Don't use your upbringing as an excuse. Use it as power. And I even tell my kids today, I said, you're going to see, I said, right now it's hard being First Nations, and it was really hard at my time as a kid and even before that. I said, but it's slowly starting to get better. You were going to see in the future, it's going to be cool to be Indigenous. I said, so I said, now is the time to learn as much as you can, ask me questions. And that's the whole reason why I wrote that book too, is to be completely 100% honest. It's in case I died with police. It's in case I died with the army, that my kids would have that to fall back on, to be like, okay, this is what my dad left behind, so, but.
They are warriors. They're strong, resilient, and determined to make a difference in the world. They come from different cultures and walks of life, but they all share a common purpose: to uplift and empower their communities. Welcome to Meet the Onôtinikêwak, a podcast where we sit down with Indigenous people who are making a positive impact in their communities and beyond. From activists and artists to entrepreneurs and community leaders, these warriors share their wisdom, their experience, and their perspectives on a wide range of topics. Join me as I dive into the diverse and inspiring stories of these remarkable individuals and learn about the challenges they face and the lessons they learned along the way. On today's show, I have John Langan. John is an award-winning author, and he speaks professionally to thousands of people nationwide on a story of resilience, intergenerational residential school trauma, and the ability to overcome obstacles in his life through perseverance and determination. John is driven to share the beauty of the Indigenous culture and ceremony. He's a soldier, he's a police officer, he's a traditional knowledge and language keeper, and most importantly, he's a father and a husband. John, welcome to the show, man. It's great to have you on. We have a lot to talk about, but first, let's hear about yourself.
Tanse aninjagogin Atlanate John Langan agaya se motsigasun tegwa wapasem nehiaunitsigasun. Akiskus First Nation Otsenia tegwa masquakogichio. What I said is my English name is John Langan, and I greeted you in Cree, Soto, and Dene as well. And then I said my native name is Whitehorse, and I come from the Bear Clan in Keys First Nation. Or not, no. Thank you very much for having me today. I was looking forward to this as well. I love speaking and I love talking to people. So let's see what we can get into here.
No, that's deadly, man. I mean, I know there's just a myriad of things to get into, but like I say, you the big thing that got me is I followed you for a while on Instagram, checking out all your stuff, and then I read your book. Actually, I say that I bought it on Kindle, read it, and then I'm not a real strong reader, most people know, so I don't read good. And then I work a lot up north to different reserves, different communities. So I listened to the audiobook on one trip, and it really got me. And that's when I was like, right away, I was like, man, I got to talk to this guy. He's got so much in common, and then just so much knowledge and so much I want to learn. So I guess first off with the book, what gave you that push, or what made you really want to write this book and spit all that knowledge out?
So we were going to my wife's reserve, which was Big River First Nation, and we're going to Thanksgiving because they have their hall there, and the McAdam family just has this big Thanksgiving. And I was watching a video on the Saskatchewan Indian Cultural Center, and there was a lady on there, and her last name was Pelly, and so I found out that I was related to her once I asked my mother about this video. But in that video, she speaks about something needs to be done now, about our language, about our culture, or about our spirituality. Not tomorrow, not next week, not the month after, year after, now. Something needs to be done now. So from there, I just looked over at my wife and I was just like, I'm going to write a book because we're cruising over to Big River. And she's like, I know you, John. I know you're going to do it. And because once I put my mind to things, I focus everything into it and everything. And the stars just aligned. I had like 3 weeks off of work. And I still had to do army at the time, but and then from there I wrote the first draft in just a little over 3 weeks, probably. Yeah, it took me about 3 weeks to get the first draft done. But mind you, I had a awesome coach. His name is Kendall Netmaker. He's a international keynote speaker, and we have the same kind of mindset where we should be holding each other up as First Nations people, not trying to push each other down and compete with each other. So he laid everything out for me on what to do. And from there, it was off to the races. He's like, "You're an army dude, so I know that you'll listen to everything that I tell you to do." And I did. Everything he told me to do, I followed to a T because he already published the book already. It's kind of up there already. That's him there. He wrote Driven to Succeed, and there's my book there now. But yeah, that was the kind of beginning of it. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And yeah, well, I'm grateful that he pushed you to do that because it hit me at the right time. I needed to hear a lot of that. And a lot of the stories, a lot of your story really connected with me. I was just laugh, like so many laughing out loud, just driving in my car going up north. And it's like, you're talking about Chester Knight. And even Chester Knight, man, I follow the guy on Facebook. He's always like, he's playing weddings and stuff. And, I'm getting my son into it. Like, obviously, Love Me Strong and stuff. But then he's got a really good song called Warrior that we listen to a lot. And
Oh yeah,
I really,
yeah.
my son, he sings it all the time. It's pretty awesome. So that made me laugh. It's like, who talks about Chester Knight? And then the other one was growing out hair, right? Like, I mean, even
Oh
me right
yeah.
now, you talked about the ugly phase, and I started
Oh
laughing
yeah.
because,
Yeah.
yeah, that's where I'm stuck right now. I actually gelled her up today, but usually it's looked like a chia pet, just freaking poofed right out.
Here's a funny story about Chester Knight. So it was my dad. So it was his friend in because he taught at First Nations University of Canada at Chester Knight. He was actually a professor. And I actually remember going to his house and seeing all the instruments in his basement and his sons playing and all that. And I'm like, holy cow. But anyways, yeah. Yeah, he used to be a professor at the First Nations University. So yeah. And then my dad was really good friends with him. Yeah.
Wow, that's deadly, man. That's good. That's awesome to hear, man. Like I say, I always try to talk to people about it. Everyone's like, "Who's Chester Knight?" And then you talk to natives, like, "Oh yeah, yeah, they know him."
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's sweet, man. And then, like I say, your book, so many relatable stories. I we'll get more into it, but I mean, the relationship with your wife, your kids, nieces, like just being a good uncle, like all that stuff, right? There's so many good things in there. Your brothers, the stories, the hardships, dealing with your mom, a lot of that as well, and the love that you have there is just so evident. And then listening to that whole book, coming home, it was like I was up north. I really wanted to talk to elders about more traditional ways. Just wanted to start getting into that, more into it. I mean, my son and I, we smudge in the mornings and do different things, but really wanted to start embracing a lot of these ceremonies. And I didn't know a lot about it. I was trying to actually find some elders when I was up in Little Buffalo to talk to, but it didn't work out. And then coming down, listening to part two of your book, you went into great detail about you really touched on all the ceremony points and the things I was going to ask anyway. You answered a lot of the questions. Still, there's so much to learn. I want to talk to more elders about it and things like that. But it really got me in the right headspace for it. And even to be able to ask the right questions about it, right? It gave me some insight of what that looks like. And it was pretty special. So, with that, like, I mean, what made you want to make that step into more of that traditional, more of the ceremonies and really pursue that?
Well, when you're a kid and you get kind of like you kind of get forced, and not forced, but it's what my dad always took me to, and my mom always took me to him, and that's one thing I think my family really held on to. Not necessarily my father, but my dad. He was the kind of main one that dragged us to sun dances, that dragged us to giveaway dances, that dragged us to round dances. Like he was the main one, and just seeing him, I even have like a memory burned in my head of him at the he was doing a warm up or like where they do a Sundance warm up, and he was there and he was at the drum, and that was just burned in my mind. And then from there I just constantly did it, and it's what made the most sense to me. And that's one thing my dad kind of taught me. He's like, you do whatever you got to do to get through this life, whatever makes the most sense to you, you do. I'm like, okay. He said, yeah, and you're going to run into a lot of people who believe in other things. You respect that. You respect whatever they believe in because they're just trying to make it through life as well. Eh? So, but no, it's just, I don't know. To be honest, like even in the opening of my book, I speak about a man that read my palm, and he's a well respected old person back home. And yeah, me and him just had a good conversation about what a medicine man was, and that's just a label, eh? And what I was told is just to always help, and just to always serve the creator. That's one thing I always have to remind myself. And it's not that. it's not that I was chosen. Well, I guess I was chosen to do this, even though like I went through some wicked fear stuff. But yeah, it just it was meant for me to do this kind of stuff. I I don't know. It's kind of hard. You kind of have to think outside the box, and that's what I kind of tell people all the time. But I try and make it in an understandable way. And when you said that, like, you don't like reading, I don't like reading neither. Like, when I wrote this, I was just like, all right, I'm going to write this in a way that's easy to understand. I'm not going to try to use big words. And that's the way I did it because unless a book really catches my attention or like the cover, like that's what I dreamt of, um, then I'll read it. Like, other than that, if it's for school or for university, then I'll really look into it. But I did not know I wrote it with the intentions of being readable and understandable by all. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. I love it. And I used to use that as an excuse a lot too. That I don't. I'm not very strong academically. There it is. Not
There
very
you go.
strong in that. Like school, I graduate. I have a grade 12, but I mean barely. Just I think someone felt sorry for me, so they gave it to me. But I was able to get through that, and I talked to a lot of the young ones about that. Of you can't use that as an excuse, right? Like there's so many other ways. I mean, obviously reading is not the greatest. There's audiobooks, right? Or even trying to write a lot of the long reports or emails I do use a lot of dictation software because I can talk, but my writing's not very strong. So it's very interesting. But so with that, with the traditional ways, and I mean, like I say, you're always around ceremonies, extremely lucky that way. I always think that you're blessed really in that sense because I was the other side where it was just Catholic to the nines, right? And I got it was almost so much with my mom that I feel it was too much, and now I pushed away, and that's where I'm looking at other options and really want to fall back on the more traditional side, more with creator, because I mean I was so fed up with the Catholic with the religion, just because this is as a little kid though. I had to go to church almost every day for like there was always a mass at 5 to 5:30 back in Meadow Lake, right? So I would have to go to church with mom then, and there was a few people there. I don't know, maybe like a handful, but it was always when The Simpsons was on. So I was always
Yeah.
so mad I had to miss The Simpsons all the time.
Ah,
Yeah, that's what made me so mad about it. But anyway, when we talk about all that, like, how do you? So myself, I was out there looking for elders. I wanted to talk to elders in Little Buffalo. It didn't work out because the community was going through something. But what would be a good step, a first step that you could think of that, to talking to elders, learning and listening to them? How do you even approach an elder with that instead of just, trying to bombard them with a bunch of questions that, maybe they don't want to answer or they're busy or whatever that looks like?
mhm. So I just uploaded a video yesterday on YouTube about this kind of stuff, eh? And it's always start with tobacco. Just always start with chistema, which is tobacco. And I always have stories that I tell, eh? And then I kind of said this in my video, but for instance, last week I was at the reconciliation powwow at the Sasau Center here, and I know a lot of powwow people, and then this old person, well, he was the whipman, and he asked for me to carry in the flag, and I was in my police uniform, but I didn't let that bug me, but um, I was looking for the Treaty 4 flag. So, and then he said, all we have is a one arrow flag. But then he handed me the tobacco. And there was that moment where I was like, okay, if I take this tobacco, then I'm obligated to do it. And if I refuse, then I just kind of push his hands, say, sorry, I just can't do it. But me, I carried in the flag trying to be picky and sour. But so then I took the tobacco. So now I was obligated to do that, eh? And then I go into a story about how I approached this old person at University of Saskatchewan. He was in the Indigenous Students Center. Back then it was Aboriginal Student Center. And my dad had a family pipe because he was gone by this point, and my family was taking care of it. There's all different kinds of pipes. There's family pipes, there's sweat pipes, there's every ceremony has its own pipe. And so this one was just a family pipe, so it just kind of protects your family, and usually the person who holds it has to smoke it every once in a while. It's supposed to be every day, but to be honest, like it's hard doing it every day. So, anyways, this old man here, I told him and I asked him, but that was a huge thing I was asking him for, and I had my tobacco, and I was trying to give him, man, and then and then he just kind of said, he politely said no, but I understand that's a huge thing I was asking him to do. and I was kind of bitter and sour again once I walked away. But now that I'm older and I have a little bit more years, now I understand more. But that's the advice that I can give people, and that's why I wrote the book is because not everyone's gonna get their hands on it, but if they do, I'm hoping that it spreads even more. And it's just to how to approach an old person. I'll bring them that tobacco, even if it's just a pinch, even if it's just one smoke, even if it's a pouch, whatever you can afford. As long as you start with that, you will not go wrong. You will not go wrong. Go to an old person, and if they don't know what you're asking for, they might point you in the direction of a person that does know, and they'll be smiling from ear to ear because they are waiting for young people to do that. And that's one thing me and my buddy kind of spoke about is we have all these old people waiting, yet you don't have that foundation of a young person who even knows how to do that in the first place. So just always start with tobacco, but always be mindful. Like I even found out, even on the far East Coast, they use cedar as their payment because you have that tobacco, cedar, sweetgrass, and sage. Those four things, but always start with tobacco and just always be aware of your area where you're at first, but you won't go wrong even giving a gift of sweetgrass or of sage. But tobacco is mainly in the prairie provinces here and kind of down south into the states a bit, but always start with tobacco. I hope that answered it. And if you're trying to figure out where to go, check for a friendship center in your area. Check for or go to a powwow and talk to the MC, and he will guide you in the right direction. Go to a powwow group, but just have your tobacco with you, and always try and make sure it's fresh or new. But I was always told whenever put down what a person can afford, and try check for a cultural center in your area and ask if you can speak to a knowledge keeper or a helper or an outer or an old person, and then they'll guide you in the right direction. Then, if not, just honest, and this is just me speaking outside the box. It's talking talking to the creator. This is the most powerful thing that we were given. It has the power to love. It has the power to hurt a person, which is our mouth. And that was the biggest gift that was given to us by our creator was the ability to pray. And that's one thing that I always do every time I wake up. And I'm not perfect, but sometimes I do forget, and every time I go to bed. And if I don't, things happen to me at night. But usually I always pray, and then I always hear my son pray, I hear my daughter pray, I hear my wife pray, but my wife prays in her own way. But it's just having that relationship with the creator, and that's the number one piece of advice I can give if all else fails, because the creator makes things happen in order if you're asking for it. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Thank you for that. That's really important, and there's some good lessons in there. With when you do give tobacco, what do you do usually? Like, do you just pull it out and put it in their hand, or do you have it in a little bag, or what do you do?
So I saw all different kinds. There's kinds like in a pouch and like just like a little medicine bag, or else you have nice pure tobacco. Because I have questions of people like, oh, the tobacco today is tainted. No, just think of it in a spiritual sense. Don't think of it in a physical sense, talking about rocket fuel and all this thing. Just as long as your heart's in the right place and you're giving that tobacco, just have it in a pouch, still in a plastic, or have a pack of smokes. But if not, you can just have one smoke. If not, you can have it in a nice little bag tied up. It's as long as you put some thought behind it, and I can guarantee you, you're gonna be like the person who's receiving it is gonna smile. They're gonna smile, and if they don't know what you're asking for, they will guide you and they will try and help you. But if they can do it, then they will take it and then they'll start talking to you, and then or else they'll make an appointment or whatever. I don't know what kind of old person you'll be talking to, but then they'll have so much they want to tell you, and then from there, just yeah, just let her buck from there, like, and then you'll have a bunch of then you'll have an old person that you can go to, and then he might connect you with another person, and that's how my life kind of was. I just got connected from person to person, and finally landed with my teacher, and he doesn't like being called an outer. He has the same birthday as me, and then his teacher has the same birthday as well. So I was kind of told that so the White Thunderbird wanted us to meet each other. Yeah, but no, yeah, I totally hear what you're saying. Like I'm blessed to have all of that, but in saying that, it did take me a lot. It did take me a lot to be where I'm at right now. Because back in the day, we had our grandparents. So we had our aunties, our uncles, our grandparents. We had that family unit. Everything was within that family unit. You had a traditionalist, you had a ceremonialist, so they know how to run ceremony. You had a medicinalist, they know where to find medicines already. And you had a spiritualist, the ones that can communicate with the spirits. You had that all in your family unit. And obviously, from residential schools and everything that happened, all that got torn away. Everything got torn away. So now we're so fragmented everywhere. But now, like I was kind of alluding to before, we need to help each other as First Nations people. We need to help each other and help each other pick up all these pieces and form back up into what we were before, which was a strong, beautiful people. And that's what I'm trying to do. So,
No, and I appreciate everything you're doing, man. It's pretty awesome. And you made a good point of we're so fragmented and trying to find that back, right? And get things back. And I think too, as a lot of young people, we make mistakes, right? Like we make so many mistakes. Your book, you know, we talk about it, your brother, everybody makes mistakes. I have so many friends, everybody's made things in their past. Myself, like I mean, oh man, my past is martyred with so much, right? But at the same time, everyone's trying to turn their life around, or most people are trying to turn their life around. And we have to be very respectful of that as well, because especially as natives, we like to sometimes like to do that crab in the bucket, right? Of pull people down when
yeah.
they're trying to rise.
Oh,
And it's
yeah.
like, well,
Yeah.
who do you
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
you are? Why are you trying to be special? Why are
Yeah.
you trying to do this?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I see it personally because I'm trying to help so many young ones with apprenticeships or trying to get them jobs in education or engineering or anything, right? Some STEM fields. And it's so hard just to even get that, get them to break away from their community, what they think, and then obviously themselves and building themselves up. So there's a lot there. And I really appreciate everything you and everybody else is doing when they get out there, speak
Oh,
to the
yeah.
young ones and talking, right? To build them
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I kind of thought about too. Like once in a while, I'll go to the hood here in Saskatoon and like I go to White Buffalo Youth Lodge or I speak to teachers like in their classes because I know they can't afford anything. Like being a teacher, it's hard. And then even going to the hood and stuff, like I just say whatever you can afford, because those are the people I want to speak to. But at the same time, I have to kind of balance my time is worth it in my family and being with them and doing police, doing army, doing all these things at once. So, you know, my I try to reach as many as people as I can. And one question that really hit me when I was when I was out in the hood was is your book available at libraries? And again I was like, oh yeah, there's a lot of people who can't afford my book. But little did I know it was already in libraries. I Everything kind of got handled without me knowing. And then I was like, shoot, I don't. And then I ended up giving everybody a book that day that was in the audience. And I just kind of thought about that because I had to remind myself once again, who am I working for? I'm working for the creator. So that's, yeah.
That's awesome, man. And I understand that you have to really pick your spots. But again, with this book, it gives it out to that wide audience. Obviously, libraries, anything we can do, giving free copies or anything like that, which is great, and we can get out to as many people as we can. The videos you're making now on YouTube is awesome. Like these podcasts, using your voice, getting out there to anything free, because yeah, like you say, only so many people can pay for certain things, or if there's
Oh
certain
yeah, yeah,
galas
yeah,
or speaking events, only it's
yeah,
kind of it's
yeah,
tough.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's very true. Yeah, yeah.
No, that's awesome, man. I'm glad you're doing all of that. I guess with that being said, with the young ones and especially going to the hood and stuff, like, and so many guys my age, our age, is like starting to straighten out. What's a couple things that you've seen now? Because you've been around your army, your police, all of that. Like, what's a few, even just a couple tips that you can give to some young ones to try to help straighten out a little bit, or a couple tangible steps to at least get the ball rolling in the right way?
It's one thing I always tell young people, and even if I only have like 10 minutes to talk to them, is I always tell them, don't use your upbringing as an excuse. You use it as power. And that's why I try sharing my story because as people, as humans, we have to like see things. Things have to be tangible and measurable. So that's what I always try and do is I always try speak to young people and give them that's the number one piece of advice that I can give. Don't use your upbringing as an excuse, use it as power. And I even tell my kids today, I said, you're gonna see, I said, right now it's hard being First Nations and it was really hard at my time as a kid and even before that. I said, but it's slowly starting to get better. You were gonna see in the future it's gonna be cool to be Indigenous. I said, so I said now is the time to learn as much as you can, ask me questions. And that's the whole reason why I wrote that book too, is to be completely 100% honest. It's in case I died with police, it's in case I died with the army, that my kids would have that to fall back on to be like, okay, this is what my dad left behind. So but I'm hoping that doesn't happen. But that's another reason, and that's the advice I give youth: is don't use your upbringing as an excuse. Use it as power.
That's awesome, man. That's good, and that's so true. I've seen so many people use those excuses, right? And like I say with myself, like learning, you can use that excuse. Your upbringing as an excuse, abuse, all that stuff as excuses. But then you always see the people that rise up from that too, and it's made them stronger. It's made them resilient, and now they reap the rewards of that, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. And that's one thing. And I'm sorry that I didn't start with it, but usually I always do. I always acknowledge the women in my life all the time. And like, cause me, I totally believe Indigenous women, even women in general, are powerful. They are much powerful than men. I was always told this in ceremony as well. We're just pitiful men. That's all we are. That's all we are. And next to powerful women, I said, because they have the ability to give life. So that's right next to the creator. And then they hold it, and then they keep us men in line. So that's the main thing I always tell people. I said, you know why I'm here? Like, even right now, like, why I'm here right now is because my wife, she's like, don't forget you had that podcast this morning. All right, like, and then even going to go speak at the library, she was right beside me. She was always standing beside me. She wasn't standing behind me. She was standing beside me. She's my partner in life. She's everything to me. And I always like to acknowledge women. So I apologize, but sorry.
Oh, that's deadly, man. That's an awesome topic to move on to because women they're huge, right? And especially
Oh, yes.
that's what always makes me laugh. And I talk to Laura about it, like my wife, I talk to Laura about it lots, and we even mention it on shows and things we do. But it like behooves me. It blows my mind that when most of these women, if they talk about sexism and the whole feminine movement and men putting them down and all these things, it's crazy when guys talk like that or think of women as like a second, I don't know, like less than. It's like I don't think they fully understand, or most men don't grasp it, I guess. But yeah, like you said, like they're the bringers of life. Who do you think keeps the house? Who do you think keeps everyone in line? I mean, there's so many things that women can do that men are, like you said, we're disposable. Why do you think most men, like why were most men were in, like the warriors and different things? Because next in line, right, get the next guy up, whatever. But it was always protect the women because they're the important ones. It's
Oh,
crazy how we
yes,
forgot
yes.
about that or moved so far away from it.
Yuppers. And then even when it comes to our ceremonies, when they were first banned, it was women who were at the front. When the Indian agents knocked on the door and asked where the men were and the boys, we were out still conducting ceremony. And it was a woman who would just tell them straight, like, they're here, get out of here. Like, you guys have no business coming here. So it was them. They were at the forefront of all of our ceremonies. And now, like, there's some areas where women aren't allowed in some ceremonies, like, but now they're starting to take their place back because they were there protecting us at the very front. And now, since all of our ceremonies, because there's some, you'll go to some reserves, and let's just say you're going to a Sundance or a night lodge or a shaking that they're hidden, like they're deep in a bush. And that goes back to when they were first banned. And there's some reserves you go to where everything's at the forefront, like everything's just there. As soon as you come, you're like, oh, this is awesome. So no, yeah, you just I always like to acknowledge women for that part as well. They were there, and like they were protecting the ceremonies, everything. We owe them so much. And then we take, as men, we kind of take credit for everything. And then there was one more thing you said there, as warriors, and that's one thing I'm trying to bring back is like how to be a warrior. It doesn't mean being army like me or being in the police or anything like that. It's just bringing back that warrior society, and but in a more modern sense, because back in the day we used to have a warrior society, and we would prosecute, and we would have our own law systems, which I'm still currently learning, because that's what I really want to learn and to kind of spread as well. But I'm learning bit by bit slowly. But that's another thing I want to kind of bring back is being a good warrior, which is being a good dad, which is being a good husband, which is providing for your family. Like even my wife too, she's a social worker and she's out providing too. And it's a partnership. That's what we always tell each other. Yeah.
That's the biggest thing right now is trying to push, for me anyway, is like trying to push that on men right now is we really need to step up and really step into that power and start being that man so that, well, for one, guys our age, so our kids can see that and their kids
Oh
have
yeah,
something to look
yeah.
up to.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a huge thing. Because even as I reflect on my own story, it's me, like, a dad is needed. Like, even when it comes to my daughter, like, a dad is crucial. With me, like, once I didn't have my father, then my dad stepped in. I'm like, man, like, shoot, I really needed him because he's a reflection of what you see right now and more. Because he raised me till I was about 13 or 14, like, good. Unfortunately, he kind of got into drugs, but you know, he just taught me so much and he instilled so much, and he knew about residential schools and their impact because he went to them himself, and he taught me so much in such a cramped amount of time. And yeah, but he's a reflection on what you see right now, and it's because of him showing me, what a good dad is or what a good husband is, so.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that in your book talking about that, and then obviously you're like getting reconciling a little bit as you got older, and when he was near his end as well, you're at least he was able to see your kids and see the man that you've become and the things that you've done. Right? It was yeah, it's pretty special. And I when I was reading that, it really hit hard. A lot of jealousy came up to be honest, because I've my dad was in my life my whole life, and then or my upbringing until I was 18. He passed away when I was 18. And then, so he got to see that. And then he had to deal with the shit ass teenager and whatever. Right. So he didn't get to see me make mistakes, but be the man, be a father, be successful in career and things. So I was a little bit, I hold on to that a little bit. I mean, obviously I got to let it go too, but
Hmm.
I'm sure he's watching wherever he is, but
Oh yeah, yeah.
it's pretty special. And we really have to remember that to take those in and spend time with those guys when they're still around. Right.
Oh yes, yes, and that's what I always tell people. Like, even as I do my job, I always tell people, you only got one mom and you only got one dad. I said, value the time that they're around. So that's what I always try to tell people with my job. But no, it's a huge thing. It's like I kind of alluded to before. Dad is crucial. They need to be around. Just that whole family unit. I took some classes in university I didn't do too good at, but one was family, and I took infants and children. So I'm kind of happy I took those classes, and they kind of laid the foundation for me how to raise a child and the steps you're kind of going through and the dynamics of a family. So I had that little foundation as well. So yeah.
No, that's good, man. And then, again, you said raising a family. It's again, we have to keep those units together, whatever that looks like, and that's where it starts with the men working on themselves. And once you're a strong man, confident man, fit man, able to talk to mentors and have people in your life that you can talk to about those little problems and not bring those little tiny problems to your wife that puts doubt in her mind, like all these little things that build up to keep that family together so that your kids can have a like they're so important. Dads, moms are so important, everybody's so important, and they have to see that, and they have to see it working well or working together and solving problems together, and how to do that without just always everyone freaking out or yelling all the time. Like they have to see how conflict needs to be solved, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that's I always have my wife in the back of my head. But when we argue and stuff, sorry, I'm trying to get it right with my wife. It's us against the problem. It's not us it's not one person against this, and it's us against the problem. And then we even get into a spiritual sense because we understand a lot about that, and we get taught in ceremonies and stuff. And this is another teaching. Uh, we get taught. So people always talk about the devil, but we know it as a dark one in a ceremony. Um, it's not a person with a pitchfork and pointy tail. It's everywhere. It's the moment you step outside your house and you're tested at every moment that you go through your life. And when me and my wife argue, we instantly stop. If we're getting right into it, we'll just stop and we'll be like, that dark one is laughing right now. It just wants us to fight. It wants us to do this. And we honestly stop. At times we're just like, and then we'll just go smudge right away. We'll go pray, and it's just crazy how that works. I don't know, but it's just our firm belief, in our spirituality. And that's one thing that I just love about my spirituality and that's why I want to try my best to, and creator, it's up to it's up to the creator if he wants me to do this. But to run my own stuff, and it's what helped me was hearing and seeing and feeling and seeing these spirits come and talk to us. And I know it's so hard to understand right now, and because like I said before, we are the type of people that need to see, feel, and hear, and that's what helped me, to be honest. Like seeing a person, and I know it's gonna blow your mind, but seeing a Sasquatch sit right beside me, and and to help, or to hear a bear come through sweat rocks when you know they're red hot, and it's coming crawling right through it, and it's talking to everybody, or hearing or seeing a red hot rock talk, and you're like, now I can see why why when contact was made, why these ceremonies got banned, because people were probably like, these First Nations people are talking rocks, like, so, but that's how beautiful our culture is, and I'm trying my best to bring that back, but it takes a lot. And I'll share something with you that I didn't share in my book or anything else. I we deal heavily with dreams, and in my dreams, there's sometimes like I'll remember it like watching TV. And this one dream I had, I could paint it how it looked, and it was a sweat that was in a corner with a concrete foundation, and there was dirt on the inside, and there was a bunch of old sheds, like at a farm or an acreage with grain silos, and there was like 80 plus people there, and I was shaking hands with everybody, and I was with my wife. She was in my dream, and I was just like, Darius, who's my teacher, I was like, he should tell us that there's this much people. This is gonna be like two sweat lodges in a row or three. And then all of a sudden, I got everything ready like I normally do for my teacher, and then I went in the sweat, and I said, "All right, Darius," I say, and like it's all ready. And then he said, and then I gave him his pipe, and then all of a sudden he's like, "No," and then he handed it to me. He said, "You, it's your turn." And then that's when I put it up, and then my dream ended. But yeah, so that's what I want to do in the future, and what I saw was what's going to happen in the future, because I want to share this with as much as people as I can. But I'm very careful because it's a very sensitive subject, and people, yeah, I could speak for a long time about spiritual warfare, but no, it was a nice bright dream. And then even recently, within the past 2 months, just probably 8 nights in a row, I was just having dreams about ceremony, like things I could paint, like how vivid and clear those dreams were. But it's coming, but it does take a lot, and I am gonna be it's gonna be the people ceremony. It's not gonna be me. Like I'm just a conduit where I'm gonna try and help people, and I speak about my fast, and there's more times I have to fast now to earn that, to earn that right, because I got given a gift to do it, but I have to earn that right in order to run those ceremonies. But sorry, no, I just thought I'd share some up to date things that I've been going through, and it's a lot, and but I'm not gonna give up though.
No, oh, well, you better not. I mean, that's it's pretty deadly, man. I, it's so great to hear, and I'm so fortunate because, like I say, I'm just starting that journey now, right? And with my sons, and I want to make sure that they grow up with that, and it's pretty special to see that people are still carrying this on, and people are doing it, and that elders and the older ones, they're excited to see you guys do this and to see people do it, right? It's pretty special to see that.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I like. Me, I go way out far. Like I make that effort, and I kind of go into it when I quit drinking, and all that money I save from quitting drinking, I put into my gas tank, and I go to ceremony, and I don't think twice about it, and I go, and this is how I got to where I am, and I just constantly keep going, and now I'm at the point now where I can just call up my teacher and be like, "Hey, let's have a sweat," and you'll be like, all right, and then you'll put it on. But usually you gotta have a good reason why it's being put on. But no, yeah, I'm at that point now where things are really good, and I went through so much darkness, as you can tell from my story, and those are just the stories that I chose to tell. There's so many other ones where, yeah, like I wasn't afraid for those stories to tell them, because I mean, like, you know what? No, this needs to be said. This is what a lot of people go through, and I'm gonna be well, not first, but I'm gonna be the one to kind of lead the way, I guess, with this one. Yeah.
Well, it's good, and like I say, it's so important because you even mentioned in there, right? Like the dark ones, and the dark ones always chasing those kids, like those kids that have the light, right? And they're it's always those, it's always them, and they're trying to dim that light, right? And a lot of them fall to that, and we lost so many good people, or there's so many good people lost. You see it every day out on the streets, right? And
Hmm.
there's so many special people out there that are just they're slaves to whatever substance they got them, and it's tough, it's hard. I mean, I mean, I've ran the gamut on all those too, and I understand why people do them. There's a
Yeah,
big runaway to it. There's a big release, and there's no cares in the world, right? So it's
yeah,
this
yeah.
spiritual journey, this sober journey. It's a hard journey. It's not easy by any means, right?
Mhm. It's not, and that's the one thing that I always tell people. I said this is not an easy road. It's not like I can go to a corner and go to a church or a mosque. Like I can't just. I have to make that effort. I have to cruise a far ways or, but now what I'm learning right now, and is what I already shared with you guys is praying to the Creator. That's one thing that's just so powerful. It's just our mouth, and I'm pretty sure everybody can agree with me. Like it can love, it can hate. Well, and I don't even like using that word. Like it can make a person feel horrible, and or it can make a person smile. It can make a person, understand things, learn things. It's a very powerful thing. So that's why I always tell people, be careful what you say, and I'm always careful. Like even as a pipe carrier now, I have to be really careful. There's so many rules, and if I told you the rules, you would be like, man, like how do you do what you do? Because when I first started, I was like, oh, I can't drink before I smoke a pipe 4 days before. But now once you have one, like there's a lot. Like it evolves even bigger to where when you're fasting you can't even kill a skeeter or like a mosquito. Like you can't mow your lawn. There's lots of things once you really get into it, and which is kind of the road I'm going into. And like even my teacher, he just said, everything that you're going through and what you've been tasked to do, he's like, it's the same thing I've been through. So it's crazy, he said, just to see how everything's kind of panning out. Because we just take our advice from the grandfathers and grandmothers, from the Kokuminiwak, the Moshominiwak. Yeah. So the grandfathers and grandmothers, yeah, they're the ones who kind of guide us in everything that we do. And I had some people tell me like, "Oh, they're talking to the devil." It's just that fear of the unknown. But me, I tell them, well, if they tell me to love my wife and to be faithful and to not drink and to raise my kids right, then damn, I guess I'm talking to the devil. But no, like honest, that's the kind of things I encounter. Yeah, yeah.
That's, sir, you hit it right on the head, man. I say that all the time. And it's always, you're opening up portals. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing, you go, if
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
different tea ceremonies, different whatever, right? Like you're talking to the
Mhm.
devil, you're inviting all this in. It's like, man, the things I've seen, the things I've touched, the people I talk to, if that is the devil, then I don't know, man. Then so be it, right? Then that's what it is, or that's my journey. But yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's like I say, it's just awesome that you're doing all that, and it's awesome to see this coming into light a little more. Like there's a ceremony ground in Edmonton opening up soon. I think it's going to open next spring. So it's pretty awesome that at least it's starting to open up, and that'll get a little bit, at least get more people thinking about it, right, and talking about it and doing these things, and hopefully teaching them. I know there's going to be a lot of things that are um, I don't know the best way to say it. Probably not on a par with every, like with all the rules, and probably going to be
Mhm.
people trying to take the easy shortcuts, right? And
Yeah,
and there'll
yeah.
be consequences to that. But
Oh yeah,
at,
yeah,
at, at
yeah.
least there'll be people, opening some eyes and opening the ways, and hopefully people dig deeper and find the actual traditional ways instead of trying to take the shortcuts.
Yeah, and that's one thing I always tell people too, and I always try to make it understandable. It's just like Star Wars, like with spirituality, you have to have that balance of good and bad. So just know not everything is gonna be posies and sunshine. So you are gonna encounter some bad things, and just as much as there's good half, there's also that bad at half. So just always take that in consideration. Like not everything you're gonna see is gonna be nice, but don't let that sway you or stop you from following the good way. Because I asked before, I was like, because I was trying to ask before, I'm like, how do I know if I'm at a place that's practicing bad, and you're like, don't worry because you're not practicing. So don't even ask questions about that. You're following the good way. I was like, okay, all right, just want to make sure. Yeah. So I'm not being swooned into a bad place, but no, no. I've experienced being in a bad place, but that's just part of the journey. Like you have to know what bad looks like in order to feel what good feels like. So just know that if you're gonna take this journey, there is gonna be times where you're gonna be like, I don't feel right, and I don't think I'm at the right place. But just follow your heart. To be honest, just follow your heart and your mind, and then because there's one that walks with you. And I kind of go into my recent YouTube video. It's like your conscience, like that one that says, "Hey, don't do that. No, this isn't a good place." It's your guime. So it's the one that looks after you, that walks with you throughout your whole life. So mine's Mike, and which is Wolf, but I just call him a wolf. And he kind of looks after me and is my conscience, and he's gonna be with me from the time that I got my native name until I'm done in the spirit world. I'm in the spirit world. So no, there's a lot. Like I can teach so much, but you know everything that I have learned is like a lot of knowledge, but it's only like on a grade level of kindergarten to university or doctors. I'm in like grade 6 right now, and there's so much to learn. And with the one thing my dad taught me is like, think of it as like a big pool of water, like an Olympic size pool of water. You take a teaspoon a day. That's it. Because if you learn everything at once, you're just gonna hurt yourself, and you're gonna confuse yourself, and you're gonna be so angry with yourself. So just take your time. Yeah, take your time.
That's a good lesson there, man. That's good for a lot of things. That's
Yeah.
that's pretty deadly, man. Well, you've been mentioning it a little bit, right? Like with your wife, how special she is in your life, and the things that she's helped and turned you around. And I'm in the same boat. Of man, the amount she saved my life, man. I couldn't even tell you where I'd be. But I
Hmm.
remember in your book, you found the tree and you offered tobacco and you put that pearl, right, to
Yeah, yeah,
find
yeah,
to find the
yeah.
right woman to stand beside you, right? Like you say, not in front, not behind. She's beside you. How I don't even know what I want to ask. Just with that relationship, like what really, like what would you want to tell young people about a relationship like that? Like about finding that right woman and praying for the right woman, and still holding strong in your own manhood as well, right? Like she's not gonna, don't find a woman that's gonna walk all over you and don't do everything, don't be taken advantage of, but to find someone that's, you know, partner. I don't like saying partner because she's your wife, but same
Yeah,
time,
yeah,
you're doing life together, right?
yeah, yeah. I guess the best thing that I can think of, and this is just a combination of everything that I heard, you know, and this is what my brother told me. He's my oldest brother Ryan. He just said, you try find a woman that grew up the same as you. I kind of understand that, but then but me and my wife, we kind of went through a lot growing up, and you try find a person that your mom would approve of. But here's one thing my mom said. She was, and my dad, if she can make bannock, then she's good to go. So when I brought my wife to my mom and dad, like she made bannock, and she made good bannock, and she still does to this day. But no, I don't know. It's all gonna be very unique to that person and how they were brought up. Because one thing I'm teaching my daughter right now is, I always plant little seeds all the time. I tell her to respect herself first before she even tries to love anybody. She has to love herself first, respect herself. Then I said, if you were to write down on a piece of paper of the people you trust, I even asked my wife this yesterday. I said, would you put your name down on it? And then they're like, yeah, yeah. I said, so always make sure you have those checks in. And then when it comes to finding a boyfriend or a man in the future, and my daughter's but no, I was like, try find a person that's like me, but better, because you need a person that's gonna help you and be there for you, and you're gonna be there for them as well. Because I know, I'm not gonna be ignorant to the fact that that there's gonna be boys and men and pursuing my daughter, and that's a hard thing to swallow. And because I grew up with all boys. So even when I had my daughter, I was just like, like I don't have any experience with this. But no, it's just it's just being there, honest to God, like being a dad. Like it's just being there. And like that's half the battle. That's what I always tell people. It's just be there for them. Be there when they're crying, listen to them, listen to their problems, and don't try offer solutions to them. Try to teach them how to problem solve on their own. That's another thing I teach my daughter and my son. I give them little scenarios. Like even with my boy, I'm like, all right, house is on fire, what do you do? Because I bought a fire extinguisher. And then my son, run out, run out, grab everybody, and don't grab any possessions because you don't die with your material. I was like, that's good, my son. But I was saying like a tiny little fire. He's like, oh, okay. And then I got into training them with the fire extinguisher, but just to kind of problem solve with them. I don't know. I hope that kind of answered your question.
Yeah, man, that's a great thing. And I always take it for granted because I grew up on a small farm just outside Meadow Lake, right? So small farm, we are broke, poor man, and
Mhm.
but we were able to problem solve, right? Like you can't just pay someone to fix something. You can't just everything was like, well, figure it out, right? And again, I take that. I'm very lucky because that helped me with construction and in my life, all through my life, right? Just fix it, make it work, whatever, right? And then yeah, and then you said the same with your wife, right? Find someone that grows up. Like I didn't know Laura till we're 18, 19, but she same thing, grew up on a small farm like that too, right? So she's willing to work, and I always laugh and joke like I always make her work. If I ever had to pioneer her back, I wish she was around. If we're in 1800, she'd be the one still because I got her outside digging in the dirt, and she's got her new baby strapped to her chest and like still digging. Like holy man, you'd be the one no matter what. So I know I picked the right one.
Yeah,
Um,
no, that's good. Yeah.
yeah, no, it's pretty exciting. And yeah, that's awesome. I was going to ask you the question about what's it like raising girls? Because I'm in the same boat. I got my two boys. I got Lennox and Bear, and those two guys are pretty awesome. And I don't have that woman, and we'll probably be trying, for maybe we'll try for a girl. I gotta get Laura a girl somehow. But
Yeah.
I'm always interested in that, like what that feels like raising a woman. But I know you touched on it a bit, but um, I feel you on being that example, right? Of if she had that dad in her life all the time and he was that example, she's not going to settle for less. Like she knows what a
Oh yeah.
real man would
Yeah.
be, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like even with my two nieces that I have there, like um I really tried, like I put everything I could into them. And now my niece, she calls me her dad and all that. And she graduated, and she calls me and Bianca her mom and dad. And then even with my niece as well, Ryan, um it's just having that dad. Is just because, with one of my brothers, and I won't name who it is, but he's still addicted to meth. And it hurt me because, even, I'm not afraid to say I go to a psychologist because I'm trying to be proactive in that as well. So I was talking to her, and I just broke down because I was like, I don't know how a dad would not want to see his first grandchild, and not want to see her, like I said, it just blows my mind. And I said, like I organized a little barbecue event and got us all to gather together, just being there. And I give my niece texts and say, I said uncle in her language is the dad who steps in, and she and me and her talk a lot. And I said, don't let it get to you too much, just know that I'm here. I said, if you ever need anything, I'm here. And then even with my niece, we're always there for her and whatever she needs. And we're there for, like, even for her grad, it was kind of awkward, but like we were there. And I had that dance that they usually have with the dad at the end there, and I was just happy. I was just smiling so hard. And it's just things like that. And then my little psychologist just said, like, it's because you have a heart, and you love them. And I'm like, I said, I honestly do. It's just things like that. It just, and little do I know, but my daughter, and now that even talking to you, and like, my daughter's observing this, and she's learning off of me. And my son is observing this and he's learning off of me, and so, I instilled a good work ethic into them, and now they're trying their best. They're applying for university, and, I'm pushing people. And little did I know I'm having impacts on a lot of people around me. For instance, I was at the Treaty 4 powwow a couple weeks ago, and my uncle is one of the MCs, and I had my book because just I always have books in my vehicle, and he's like, "Go and sell your book. Just make a little hobo sign," and because that's how people kind of sell things there. They kind of have like raffle and all that. So I went to go give a book to the organizer, and I was like, "Hey, this is kind of the people I want to speak to." And my sister-in-law who lives with me right now, because we're supporting her as she goes to university, um, she watched me as I went person to person, holding my little book, and then my boy held a little sign, and then I sold like three boxes in like 2.5 hours. Not even, because I would speak to people, and they would ask me questions, and then I ran into a photographer, took a picture of me, and then all of a sudden I'm speaking to a news person, But it's showing the people around me, like just to have that motivation, that drive, even though it's on my low hustle, but like it's just showing that. And it's what air cadets, it's what army, it's what police, all of these things, a combination of everything that just push me to be a better version of myself. And then my kids observe that, and yeah, like half the battle just being there and doing what you normally do. But no, sorry I rambled again, but hopefully
No,
that.
I love it, man. I've been saying that same thing. I've been preaching that so hard on men that these kids, these people, they watch you, they see you. If my dad's a strong guy. My dad, he's working out downstairs. I know he is, right? And I can go see him and talk to him and help him. I'll do a few push-ups. I always work out with my son every now and then, or he comes downstairs, and when whatever he does, I'm not going to push him to do anything, obviously, but it's like, he can never say, he's like, my dad's a hard motherfucker. My dad works hard. Like, my dad's a strong dude. He's going to do these things. And they see you working, they see you writing books, they see you teaching people. They know there's so much pride in that, right? Like, think of the pride you
Yeah,
hold for your dad. I always think the pride I hold for my dad, and I want that to be tenfold for my own kids, right? And hopefully they do the same for theirs.
yeah, yeah. Like with my gym I have here, so I have a studio, and here I have a bunch of stuff here, and they watch me do this too. And then even when I work out, like I have treadmill, I have mirrors, I have everything. I have dumbbells, kettlebells, heavy bag, and they run, like even when we went to Disney World, I was like, all right, you guys, we got to train for it, So so then they would run like miles. They would run 2.4 kilometers, and then they would just get ready to walk and to get ready to run, and then they learned how to skip, and my since I was in boxing before, and so I still do it. So I still skip. I still have all my boxing skills, but my daughter has that, and this, so when she goes to school, they're like watching her skip, and they're like, "Oh, she really knows how to skip," because you have that old school jump rope for hard kind of way, but then you have the boxing way, and then so my daughter's doing that, and I teach my daughter how to defend herself. I teach my son how to defend himself. But I said, you only use this, if you really, really, really need it. I said, just know that, cause that's what I was taught from my boxing coach. He's just like, don't ever use this on the street, because it'll be used against you only if you must use it. And then even with boxing, that's what it taught me, is to respect everybody, because you never know what a person's capable of. And then even with my policing job, it's the same thing. Yes, I could probably take somebody on one, but then when all of a sudden there's a person behind me and they're choking me out, so I always try my best to use my words, which I usually do. And yeah, but it's verbal judo, we call it. So I learned how to diffuse people using my words. Yeah.
Oh, that's great to hear, man. I mean, that's an awesome topic to even touch on a little bit, because my son, he's I used to box as well, so we do a lot of boxing. We hit mitts downstairs. He's 5.5, so making his little killer. And then he's been in jujitsu for a couple of years now, and he's quite into tournaments and things. So he's got that whole side. But again, we talk a lot about you never want to fight outside, and I equate that to my boxing, because it actually, I got into boxing later in life. I was already 20, I think, when because you'd always get into a fight, whether it's, at a party or at the bar or something, and they're just quick little scuffles or whatever it is, right? And they happen because you're drunk and not thinking. But then with box, I lost a fight that I should have won. That's what got me into box. I was like, that should not have happened. Yeah, I was drunk. I couldn't even stand, but I was like, I shouldn't have lost that thing. So then I got into boxing, and it taught me a lot in the sense, well, obviously how to fight properly and punch properly, but then you realize, right, there's so many things that plays with. For one, it plays with your mind, or played with my mind out. I got a match in 6 weeks. I know the guy's name. I've seen pictures of him. I've seen him videos, and like, yeah, he's really good. And then like one day I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna beat him up. I got this. I got this. Then the next minute I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna lose. What am I doing? So it plays with your mind, makes you really mentally strong. But then on the flip side, when you do go out, like you said, there's zero part of you that wants to fight. Like, it's like, no, I don't want to. For one, I don't want to break my hand because I got fights coming up. Or two, it's like, yeah, like you said, you don't know what anyone has out there. You don't know. There's nothing to prove.
Yep.
You have zero to prove, right? To do any
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very interesting. I love how you talk about with boxing.
Yeah, yeah, because I had my first fight and I lost that one, but me and that person were just so happy to have that first fight, and like nobody got knocked out or anything. Like I got standing 8 counts, but like shoot, once you get people over 200 pounds who are smashing each other, like man, like you get your bell rung, and like me and him were like, just complimenting each other at the end. Or like, man, you hit hard. I was like, you hit hard. I was like, it's just those things. And then my next fight, yeah, I ended up winning that one by points. But still, it just kind of teaches you, like just to be more humble and just always respect the other person, and that's what I liked about boxing, because you had nobody else to blame but yourself if you lost or whatever. But in amateurs, it doesn't really matter. It's just how many fights you have, eh? Because my coach wanted me to take over the club, eh? And I'm like, nope, nope, no, 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 I don't want to, because I was like, I want at least 10 amateur fights at least, but no, I was just too busy, and things were starting to evolve in my life where I had a lot more going on. But no, but now I'm getting more into Muay Thai now. So, but I just do it to honestly stay in shape. Like I honestly do that. That's the whole reason why I joined boxing, was just for the army, just to stay in shape. And then I did. Then I was like 249 pounds, and I made it down to like 205 pounds in like 30 days. So I juice fasted for so juice, vegetable juice. People are always like, juice. He's probably on steroids. No, no, I juice fasted for like 31 days, and I lost like 30 some pounds because I was losing like a pound a day. But yeah, I just remember seeing this one boxing coach that came, and he was like, because he saw me at the beginning, and then at the end he's like, how much weight did you lose? And I told him, man, no, it's hard work. But yeah, no, yeah, it was quite a journey with boxing, and I might actually get back into it. So I connected with another boxing club, and that's where I did an presentation for the people I want to speak to, and so then I kind of spoke to them, and then I connected with the coach, and that's Copas Boxing in Saskatoon. He would love to shout out, but yeah, that's he's really connected with the youth there, and he just loved that I came and spoke to them, and yeah, it was a good day that day as well. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Like again, I just keep going back to them. I'm really glad there's guys like you out there doing that for the young ones, for older ones. It doesn't matter, right? Being that example, it's so awesome. Well, we touched on a lot here. There was just one more, and I heard you talk about it too. How you said you're not ashamed or not embarrassed about talking to a psychiatrist, and I'm in the same boat. I've done the same. I've had to do that just on different things, different issues, and getting through it that way. And it's helped me tons. And I'm not, extremely open about it, extremely vulnerable with everything in my life. I guess enough people hear this, they know everything, but kind of just to wrap it up with men's work, because that's like the world I'm in, right? Is men's work,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
or a
yeah.
lot of men's work in relationships. But like, what's that mean to you? Like, what's that, when you hear that, what's that mean to you? And with the mental health side of things, and just in general, what do you hear when I say that?
I just want to make sure I heard it right. Men's work.
Men's work in the sense of men working on themselves. So mental
Oh,
health,
okay.
and
Yeah,
even
yeah,
just
yeah.
body, everything, spiritual, everything.
So here's one thing. I always had the medicine wheel, and like I always saw it growing up, and I didn't really pay attention to it, because for those who don't know, it's the physical, mental, spiritual, emotional. So that's that four. And I always remember this one guy. He's like, Native people like the number four, So he's like, but it is true, because there's four directions, there's four seasons, there's the medicine wheel, there's a lot more things that are four. And I always try balance everything with that medicine wheel now, and it makes a lot more sense to me now that I'm a little bit older. Not old, but I'm 34 now. But physical, I have to work out. I keep it very simple. If I don't work out, then I get cranky and my back honestly starts to hurt, and it's kind of like my muscles are kind of holding my frail body from everything that happened with the army and everything. And mental, I always used to lean on my wife, and because that's how strong they are. But now I started to see a psychologist, and I call it a shrink, but my wife's like, "Don't call them a shrink. They're not shrinks." So I go see my psychologist. You know what? It was weird and awkward. As I would talk to her for like 4 sessions, so it was like 4 hours of just me talking. But every time I left, I felt good, and every time I work out, there's not one moment where I was like, "Well, I feel horrible now." I always feel good when I'm done. Same thing with psychologist. I'm being proactive at the same time. And one thing she said, she's like, "John, I noticed that you don't speak about army or police." And she's like, there's this thing with trauma. She's like, when you've been through so much growing up, it seems that everything that happens at work is just kind of a blur. And I'm like, because everything I speak about is my book, because it's cool that I wrote it. It's very cool. Yeah, yeah, cool author, whatever. But so many things came out from it. So many things I didn't know before. So many other people reaching out to me back home. So all those things take a toll on me, and you know, and then I kind of put that all on my wife, and so that's why I reached out. I put out that hand, and my psychologist, she listens to me, and now we're in like session 15 plus probably, and now I'm starting to like my wife. She's a social worker. She's like, oh, she's taking this approach where she wants you to solve your own problems, and then I go back to my psychologist. She's like, yeah, that's what I'm doing. But my wife's like, she's like, obviously I can't do it with you because you're my husband, and there's that professional relationship. So that's what I lean on with my psychologist now, and I took that burden off of my wife now. Emotional, so that's where I lean on my wife. I tell her everything. She puts up with the worst to me. I put up with the worst of her, and that's the reason why we love each other. And we lean on each other for everything we go through at work, everything that happens in our life. We're just always there for each other, and we love each other so much. And then physical, mental, spiritual. So I have to go to ceremony. I have to. It's like showering. It's one thing my dad taught me. He's like, you can believe in whatever you want, my boy. He's like, you can go to church, you can go anywhere. He said, but spirituality, it's like showering. You must do it. So I have to go to a sweat. I have to smudge. I have to go help at ceremony. I have to fast. Like even fasting, it's crazy, but I feel so good when I'm done. Like, and here's another teaching I'll give you guys. Here's another given. So fasting is kind of like pressing the fast forward button for your spirituality. But in saying that, you have to be very careful. You can't just go out in the bush and start fasting and expect something to happen. That's very dangerous. Make sure you find an elder, make sure you find an old person that knows and is gifted in that way to host it for you. Because you need a pipe. You need a pipe to protect you, and a person to protecting you spiritually when you go out and fast like that. And always transition yourself, go slowly, so practice one day, because coffee and all these caffeines and stuff that we have in our life, you have to wean yourself off of that. Because if you're fasting and you're not doing it, you're gonna have huge headaches, and it's yeah. So just make sure that you have a person who is very experienced in doing that. But no, that's our little teaching within that. But no, that's how I balance my life. Is if I just kind of think of it, if it's in a circle and I'm in the middle here, if one thing gets out of whack, then I'm just emotional, or I'm mentally unstable, or my back is hurting, or spiritually things start happening. So that's when I just kind of try to keep things in balance, and that's what I do.
Oh, that's awesome, buddy. There's a lot of good lessons in there, and there's been a lot of good lessons this whole conversation, man. I really appreciate you.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time. I appreciate you accepting my reach out, and I really cannot wait to meet you in person, and we can have a bit of a hangout and then see what's going on. But man, I really appreciate everything you brought here today. So with all that being said, where if people want to find out more about you, where can they find you, and where can they learn more about Bo John?
Here is my book, Escuches Tipiskak. So, a fun fact about my book, it's named after my son. His native name is actually Escochis. So so half the culture's in the language. So Escochis, which when a baby's in the belly and that life, that first spark, that first breath of life is put into a child and into their soft spots. That's what that means. Escuche. So my boy was named in the belly, and that rarely happens. Rarely. And so that's how we found out the gender because his name was a little fire or a little spark. Eh? So just that's what I named my book after. Because I laid in bed and I was like, what should I name the book? Because I had a bunch of titles for my book, but that's what I ended up naming it after. Was after my son. And then uh, you can find the book, sorry, at Amazon. It's Audible. I did an audiobook for it. It's for sale at res gas stations in Saskatchewan. It's for sale at bookstores here in Saskatoon, in Regina, and Yorkton. I think there's some in Edmonton now, in Calgary. At their at chapters in Indigo and in Winnipeg, and it's slowly starting to grow even more. It received a Canada Book Award. It got shortlisted for Saskatchewan Book Award, which I had no idea what shortlisted meant. And then I was like, oh, like, so that means I made like top five out of like 200 and some books. And then and then I got shortlisted for Whistler Independent Book Award. But no, it's been quite the journey. And if you want to purchase a copy from me, you can visit my site, www.asparkinadark.com. And then you can talk to me directly from there. Once I find time to with my life, then I'll reach out to you. But I always try and make time for people. I always try and make time to teach people things. But if I don't respond, it's either I'm doing police work, I'm doing army work, or I'm doing ceremony work, or I'm having family time. So other than that, I always try my best because the army has taught me time management. And anybody who says that you don't have time to do things, they're full of baloney. That's what I tell them because it's just about time management, learning how to balance things. For instance, with my books, I I incorporate my children with my presentations. I incorporate my children in my family. When people ask me to come speak for them, I'm like, okay, I want a hotel and I want it with my kids in it and my family in it, just because they're with me and they're supporting me and everything. So yeah.
That's awesome, buddy. Well, again, I appreciate you. Thank you. I wish I wish you nothing but the best, and I really appreciate everything you're doing out there. So you're doing big things, man. It's awesome to see.
Thank you, and thank you very much for having me. Moistes wapimten. So that means I will see you later. Moistes means later. Wapimten is like I'll see you. So I'll see you later. There's no word in goodbye in our language because we will always see each other later.